Today on Green Country People and Places.
This side is completely different.
It is. This is really architecturally the most interesting view in the mansion, reflecting much more of the Italian Renaissance.
We're at Fort Gibson National Cemetery. We have 18,000 grave sites. As I tell everyone, this is the most expensive burial in the world. The good news is the veterans already paid for it, and some have paid more than others.
I mean, who owns a yurt?
That's right.
I do.
Oklahoma's Green Country.
Can you let go of my thumb and I can get you some more?
It's full of unique places.
This does remind me of the Flintstones house. This thing's huge.
It's pretty impressive.
And interesting people.
This is a trading post here.
I have a lot of paranormal activity over here.
What is that, a horse?
So come along with us and enjoy the ride.
If I was to ask you what you thought the largest individual residence was in Oklahoma, you'd think maybe Garth Brooks. Good, but not quite. How about the mansion for the governor? Not quite either. We're actually in Ponca City at the Marlin Mansion. And David, you're going to take us around today.
Good morning, I am. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much. It's a squinty morning here, but beautiful lighting on the building.
Absolutely. Another one of the hot days in Oklahoma, but beautiful building. And one of the interesting features is in 1928, when this house was completed, it had central air conditioning. So we get to enjoy that today.
Me.
Absolutely.
Is this the entrance?
This is actually the formal entrance, and it would be the south side of the house and would probably be classified as the front. On the west was more of a business entrance with the portico or porte cochere, and then on the north is really architecturally the most interesting, and that would have been the social entrance.
Is this natural stone that they built it out
This
of?
is all native limestone. This area
Natural, I'm sorry,
yeah,
native, yeah.
Native. The area where we are standing was a stone quarry, and one of the reasons he selected this site to build a mansion on.
That's interesting. I mean, and the work, the craftsmanship is very good.
The craftsmanship was top of the line. He brought artisans from all over Europe, stonemasons, wood carvers, painters.
Are those carved in
Those are
the
all
flowers?
carved, and each one is different. If you can see, there's just many different flowers, mostly European type flowers that you would have found maybe in some of the royal gardens in England or Spain or France or Italy.
And I like the guttering that actually has his initial on it.
Has the monogram M in 1927, so that we will not forget the year it was built. And the M monogram peeks out through the house in a lot of different unsuspected areas.
Well, that's neat. And then you have the grand entrance of the wrought iron.
The grand entrance, this would have been where the party entrance would have been if you'd come here for a social event or a large dinner or a gala in the 1920s or 1930s.
This side is completely different.
It is. This is really architecturally the most interesting view in the mansion, reflecting much more of the Italian Renaissance and the great details. Wonderful cantilevered stairway here. Notice the rounded balcony. At the bottom, Tim, there's a Latin phrase, and loosely translated says a man's home is his castle.
He brought in artisans from Europe?
He did. The architect was actually Scottish, who had moved to New York and later to Tulsa, and then moved to Ponca City for about 5 or 6 years, John Duncan Forsyth. And then the artisans came mostly from Italy, but across Europe also, living in the artist studios, which you can see right along the walls and the outer areas of the mansion. There's several artist studios and areas where they lived while they were working here.
This is the days when you really didn't have a whole lot of power tools.
No, there weren't power tools. Everything was hand chiseled, hand sawn, worked with hand. It was all done by hand, and everything here was done on site.
This really stands out. It looks like a waterfall almost.
It does. It has a feeling of a waterfall or inverted waterfall possibly. It's a cantilevered stairway, and the idea is that the weight goes back into the wall horizontally rather than being supported vertically as most stairways would be. So as you can see, there's tons of stone supported by this massive wall.
Wow, and you can see actually the marks and the chisels in it.
Absolutely.
Neat.
Each little hand chisel is represented there.
Now, Marlin also designed the property to be entertaining too, correct?
He did. He wanted a lot of people to enjoy the entertainment. In fact, in front of us is a boathouse, and at one time it faced about a 2.5, 3 acre lake, which is in the space just below where we're standing
big
today.
greenbelt area.
The big greenbelt area here. This lake connected with 4 others via some short canals. So literally from the boathouse you could catch a rowboat and have an oarsman take you to various parts of the 5 lakes. The front lawn lake actually had 5 islands in it, so you could actually go to an island and maybe picnic in an afternoon if you
So
wanted
you
to.
had a waterway, a canal, waterway, it went around front
Exactly.
where we were?
That's exactly right.
That is
It was,
neat.
it was a whole series of canals and lakes.
So what's the curb?
Well, that's the amazing part of it. It looks like a narrow sidewalk in a lawn area.
Yeah.
Actually, it was the outline of the original double Olympic-sized swimming pool. It was 153 feet by 180 feet and made a T formation of double pools.
Wow. Did it have diving boards in
It had high dives towards the house. There were at least 3 high dive towers off the area near the house. And then the shallow end, amazingly, was at the opposite end of the pool, the farthest from the house, and they could have played volleyball or beach ball or something in that area.
Well, it's not, you don't have to run so far to rescue them out of the deep end if you're by the house, I guess.
I guess that's true. But unfortunately, the pool was filled in by the owners in the 1970s. We do have the outline of the pool. The pool is still actually there. We have no idea what condition it might be in. This is where the society parties would have been on this north lawn. You can imagine, think Great Gatsby, and the people who might have visited in Long Island or maybe somewhere in Connecticut, Newport in those
Right.
days. It would have looked the same in Oklahoma.
Standing out here with your tea and crumpets. And,
Exactly.
So where's the main entrance now that you take people
The main
in?
entrance is to the west, and we will see that it has a port cachere where the automobiles could pull up out of the weather, and you could enter there, particularly during business hours or daytime hours.
Well, it was very thoughtful of them to provide that back then.
It was probably unusual, particularly for Oklahoma, to see such a sight as that.
And what a sight! These doors are incredible looking.
They're beautiful hand-built oak, a lot of wrought iron rivets as supports in here, and notice there's even a peek hole right here. If someone came, I guess, and you weren't expecting, you can look out to see who your guest is.
Can I come into the land of Oz?
You certainly may. In fact, this is welcome to Oklahoma's version of the Land of Oz.
Now, what room are we in now?
We're in the entrance lobby, which is one of the most interesting rooms in the mansion, and it certainly is the wow factor, modeled very closely after the entrance of the Davanzani Palace in Florence.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm looking around. I see a couple statues.
Right. That's one of the most interesting things here. These are George and Lydia Marlin. They were the adopted children of Mr. and Mrs. Marlin, actually Mrs. Marlin's niece and nephew. Incredible stonework here that leads into the salons, the north and south salon, and on into the ballroom area. You can see that literally you can look from one end of the house all the way through to the east entrance.
And then as you tilt down and look, there's a basement area too almost.
There's a lower level also that reflects the upper level, and from that you would go into what was called the winter room, and beyond that the summer room.
Now the house is around 43,000 square feet, right?
It's 43,561 arguably, which is a foot larger than an acre. So our assumption is that's what he told the architect. I want an acre home.
Oh,
and
my.
That's what the result was.
And obviously, we're not going to be able to tour the whole thing. We could do a 2 or 3 hour show here. So we're going to pick and choose the rooms.
That's
and this
true.
is one of your favorites. So
Right.
what room is this?
This is one of the most formal, and it was the formal dining room. Beautiful Elizabethan English in style.
The wood is incredible. I mean, all the walls are in wood.
The wood is amazing. It is pollard oak. He had special permission from King George V, King of England, to cut oak from the royal forest.
That didn't happen too often, did
Not
it?
very often, maybe the only case in America.
And speaking of Marlin, we look over here. Is this the man?
This is the man. This is Ernest Whitworth Marlin, born in 1874 and passed away in 1941. Founder of Marlin Oil Company, which today is Conoco, portion of ConocoPhillips. And also he was congressman from the Northern District of Oklahoma, and he was the 10th governor of Oklahoma, serving in that capacity from 1935 till 1939.
this is a big area. Was this part of the party area?
This entire floor was the entertainment area. It was an art collection, and the ceilings themselves were part of the art collection. The large areas, the north and south salon and the ballroom, and this area was called the loge.
Wow, and you're not kidding about the ceilings. I mean, this is intricate.
The ceilings throughout the mansion are spectacular. The artisans, again, came from all over the world. This particular ceiling is Chinese Chippendale painted on a beautiful linen fabric.
I'm amazed at the condition it's in.
It is. The house is over 80 years old, and it's in ideal, perfect condition.
Now, you also, just walking this way, there's
Sure.
another ceiling that you're really proud of, too.
There's a lot of ceilings that we're proud of in the mansion, but this one, at least financially, would be the most valuable.
It's shiny.
Yes, and that's because it is 24 karat gold leaf applied to this beautiful coffered ceiling. Waterford crystal chandeliers that were $15,000 each when purchased. And then in the day, the ceiling had $88,000 worth of 24 karat gold applied to it. In our dollars, somewhere we believe it would be around $1.8 to $2 million today.
Another spectacular ceiling.
This is amazing. This actually loosely tells the history of Oklahoma, painted from a Native American standpoint. And
So you follow the beams and you actually progress chronologically?
You do. It is a chronological order. Of course, for hundreds and even thousands of years, the natives who were through the plains, and then eventually the Spaniards came through, the French fur traders came through, eventually the Civil War did affect Oklahoma in some ways.
Oh my.
After the war were the large cattle drives, the land runs, particularly more in western Oklahoma, and then eventually statehood, and then the discovery of oil, which changed everything across Oklahoma. In the 19-teens, Marlin introduced both fox hunting and polo to Oklahoma.
And then this actually is where they gathered for breakfast for the fox hunt?
This would have been a large breakfast room. There would have been several of these very historic tables spread out through the room. Maybe 30, 40 people would have been here for breakfast. This is a Tuscan Italian kitchen, and its main purpose was a breakfast kitchen on fox hunt days, which would have been most Saturdays.
A lot of really interesting tile
Yeah,
work,
all
probably
imported-
hand painted,
Hand
right?
painted, imported from Italy. All the cabinets are hand carved. Beautiful copper hood over the vent. And then the floor is a fish scale tile, but you can see it's multicolor.
This stove is really
Right.
impressive.
Can you imagine how
too.
many bacon and eggs were cooked over that particular stove in the day?
It had to be a little bit warm too.
That's
Now,
true.
I see you almost like a pop bottle
Yeah,
window, but where's that going?
It's called bottle glass,
Yeah.
and actually that was an air shaft that leads up through an outdoor terrace so that every room in the mansion would have natural light and have a window. Well, let me correct that. Every room but one.
Yeah,
Let me show you this room behind the door here.
Okay.
Remember, it was Prohibition days.
right.
Well, there were certain areas of the mansion that were not as open to the public, and this particular room is the one that does not have a window or any ventilation to
It's
it.
not the fanciest one either.
It's not the fanciest one either. It looks like roughly like an English pub, and it was a place that they could have got away. And remember, it's Prohibition days, so gambling and alcohol and all those good things were actually illegal.
So we had it hidden back in the corner. Now you wouldn't just hide the gambling, right?
No, there's probably other things that were a little secretive also. In fact, if you look, you'll see what appears to be a walk-in safe.
Wow.
And it goes floor to ceiling and a heavy steel door. But when you open it, as you'll notice, it's actually a narrow concrete circular stairway.
So for a man who spared no expense on his architecture, this is a little bit rougher looking.
This is sort of the rough room, but remember, this was secret, not open to the public, and it's the space where the whiskey would have been hidden.
Wow, he could keep quite a bit in here.
Something like 16 feet by 40 feet by 10 feet high, so you can imagine how many shelves and different things would have been in this particular space.
And also, since it's so thick walled, it would keep a temperature.
It would keep a mild temperature throughout the year. And above us is an outdoor terrace, so if you're walking around the mansion, you would have no idea that this even existed.
In the box?
I'm really not sure what all's in the box. I think those are just different pieces of material and fabrics that have been here, and
No whiskey.
no whiskey.
Well, you can't win them all, I
No.
guess.
I'm sure they took that with them.
So what's behind this door?
Well, they had to have a way to bring the whiskey in at night, and
Yeah.
so we're in a 300-foot underground tunnel that leads out from the North Gardens and ultimately leads out to the boathouse.
Oh, wait a minute, so let me check this out. The acoustics are pretty cool. Hello? Wow. Oh my gosh, it's an echo chamber too.
It is an echo chamber. There's actually 2 tunnels that connect, so there's a total of 550 feet underground.
Really?
And you can literally whisper. You can whisper in this tunnel, and you can hear the echoes.
Oh, that's neat. So this goes how far again?
This particular tunnel goes the length of a football field, 300 feet.
So what are we under about now?
The lawn is above us. Some of the statues, the gardens, the walkways are all above where we are walking right now.
Oh, you even have more.
Yes, exactly. We've gone 300 feet of about 550 feet. At the very end, you'll see a stairway and the old cliche, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
The light at the end of the tunnel here is the artist studio. So again, the artists had plenty of access to go between the buildings. Later, when the buildings were completed, some of the servants lived in some of those buildings, and they could go underground between the buildings and again, not have to get out in the bad weather. Okay, and here we have another little surprise.
Oh, it's a neat little building.
It is. As we step down, you might begin to recognize it. We have returned to the boathouse.
Oh, the arches.
The golden arches. These are our 3 arches. And where you're standing right now would have been a lake back in the day.
Yeah.
And through the to the south, you would see the roof of the mansion and the roof line.
I thank you so much for the tour. It's fascinating.
And we probably covered about 25% of what there is to see here.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything.
We're at Fort Gibson National Cemetery. We have 18,000 grave sites. Fort Gibson National Cemetery was established in 1868. It was originally established from cemeteries around the old fort where people were disinterred and moved here, and the cemetery was established. There's a lot of unknowns here. We've got almost 2,300 unknowns, but you have to understand that prior to the Civil War, their graves weren't marked the same. So they were marked with wooden boards when they moved them over. That they knew who they were when they buried them, but by the time they got here, that had been lost. Fort Gibson is one of 2 national cemeteries in Oklahoma. The other one is in Fort Sill. As I tell everyone, this is the most expensive burial in the world. The good news is the veterans already paid for it, and some have paid more than others, but it's paid for them and all of their eligible family members. It's true perpetual care here. When we reach a point that our country no longer cares for the grave sites of our heroes, we've got a bigger problem in this nation than who's going to care for our loved ones' grave sites.
The Illinois River is known far and wide for its scenic beauty, and it's a great place to go camping and rafting and get in your canoes and have fun. But we were looking for something a little bit different, so we found it. Yurts. What's a yurt? The only thing I do know about a yurt is that you can find them in Tahlequah and only at the Elephant Rock Nature Park. And Rod, you're going to be our guest, or guide actually today.
Well, I'm going to try.
This is beautiful out here. I mean, we're in the middle of the woods.
It is a beautiful place, nice terrain. It's a good place to get away from the crowds, relax, reconnect with nature, and just enjoy the woods.
I like that. And I guess, kind of obvious, that's a yurt.
This is a yurt. This is where you can stay to enjoy the woods and have the climate controlled and make it a little bit more comfortable for you.
It's a really unique looking structure. Where'd this idea come from? I mean, a yurt?
Actually, we have to give Genghis Khan credit with the idea. The architecture dates all the way back to Genghis Khan. It's a portable or permanent structure, and I guess since Genghis was always on the run, either chasing or being chased, that's where it originated.
So it's semi-solid, but it breaks down.
Right. It's got more or less a polyvinyl canvas on the outside. It is insulated.
Genghis used hides, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a little short on the hides up here, so. But so it is a semi-rigid structure. It works on a compression tension theory. The dome is all supported down onto the side walls, and then there's a tension cable that holds it all together. They're blueprint engineered to withstand a constant 80-mile-an-hour wind load. You can take it on up to 130-mile-an-hour wind loads.
So everybody in this neighborhood, they use tents or they have a cabin. How in your mind did you come up with the idea of putting a yurt up in green country, Oklahoma?
Well, I'm an ex-submarine sailor, and on a submarine there's emergency backups to emergency backups. And my theory is that if I was crazy and nobody wanted to come stay in the woods like I like to stay in the woods, then I could pack these up and go ahead and sell them. With cabins, of course, you have a permanent structure, and you have a cabin. If things don't work out right, you have to sell property around it or whatever. So I thought this was a good alternative. Plus the uniqueness of it. It was kind of nice to bring something new to the area.
I mean, who owns a yurt?
That's right. I do.
This is my idea of roughing it. No more tents for me.
This is a nice alternative. It gives you kind of the camping experience. You know, you step outside and you're in the middle of the woods and nature, but obviously you have some of the creature comforts at home with your running water, heated and cooled.
Heated and cooled?
Heated and cooled, air
So
conditioning.
you can stay in these year-round?
We're open year-round. And
wow.
that's really a missed opportunity for a lot of people. Don't realize that bald eagles come into the Illinois River. So there's some great picture-taking opportunities with the bald eagles. Floating the Illinois River in the winter is beautiful.
No tent I've ever been in has had a microwave and a sink, and that's pretty cool. So you have plumbing.
We do have plumbing, indoor plumbing.
Wow.
We've reached the 21st century.
You have a refrigerator, coffee maker, toaster, and one of the smallest ovens I've seen since my college days.
Almost like a European type oven, doesn't it? It fits in the smaller.
Well, you did a nice job of designing and decorating in here too. I mean, it's very homey. Nice wood floors, you got rugs out. It's pretty cool. You got a futon here. I guess this is for an extra sleeping space too, in addition to being a couch?
That's right. The yurt, this particular size yurt, sleeps up to 6 people. There's 2 full-size beds and then of course the fold-out futon.
And this is pretty cool because I guess at night you can get full moon, you get light coming in, starlight. It's a great view when you look up.
It's really nice. You can turn out the lights at night and watch the stars up through the dome. And of course, like you said, the full moon panning across is always interesting. Dances the shadows around.
Well, and you can also, when you're looking at the ceiling here, you can see more of the structure. So explain the struts thing to me.
Well, of course, we have open rafters here. The whole construction on it is pretty unique. It takes 2 people probably about 4 or 5 hours to construct.
Really?
Once the deck is built, you just basically take the door frame and screw the door frame in. And then if you'll notice, I don't know if you can get a picture, but there's a tension cable that runs around. Okay. So what you do once you have your door frames in is take your latticework walls and just like a baby gate, spread them out, and then bolt them to the floor. And you take this tension cable, and it's not under tension when you're putting it in. You just wrap it around, lace it through the tops of the lattice work, and then really the hardest part is you have to have some scaffolding or a couple ladders. It helps to have 2 or 3 people at this point to hold that 5-foot center ring. And once you have 3 rafters set in place, that center ring actually becomes self-supporting.
So this looks like a sauna, right? But it's not.
Not exactly. We have bathroom facilities inside, so you can shower and not have to walk across the park.
And they're separated from the living quarters. That's really nice.
That's kind of nice. And it also separates the 2 beds, so there's a little bit of privacy, even though it's one main room. When you're sleeping at night, you are separated a little bit.
So you actually have a bigger yurt, right?
We do have a bigger yurt.
Well, let's go take a look at that one.
All right.
So this is the big yurt.
This is the big yurt. This is a 30-foot. The others that we looked at were 24-foot in diameter. This is a 30-foot in diameter.
Whoa, 6 feet makes a big difference.
Yeah. We can sleep up to 16. We have the double-decker inflatable mattresses, so we can expand or contract as the group size dictates.
So this would be like for modern Girl Scouts and Boy Scout troops, right? The ones who want to really rough it.
Right, family reunions, things like that. There's a lot of groups come down. People, of course, the river's a social place, and so a lot of times larger groups or family reunions will frequent the area. So this is an answer for them. It's semi-camping, semi-cabins. There is another draw besides the yurts, and of course that's the crown jewel of Oklahoma's floating rivers is the Illinois in our backyard here.
And it's also a great place to hike too. You got some beautiful views of the river. You can stay above it and look down too.
Right. Great hiking trails, a few mountain bike trails.
Well, thank you for the tour.
Thank you for coming.